Facebook. We'll be starting in a couple of minutes. Hi, Denise. Hello, Sherry on Facebook. Hi, Janice on Facebook. So as you're getting settled, find something to sit on, like a firm pillow or a blanket, something that you can fold up. Hello, Lawrence and Nadia. And we'll begin in a moment. So in that process, just make your way into a good seat. So taking a good seat, turn your thighs in with your hands and draw the flesh of the buttocks slightly out to the sides. So the more mobile you are in your pelvis, the less you want to do that. So the more mobility you have your lower back and your hips, the less you do that action with your hands. Weight the knees down toward the ground in whatever way you're sitting. Let the hips settle as well, and place your hands at your sides. Press lightly down into the fingertips, and as you press lightly into the fingertips, lengthen up on the sides of the torso so that the trapezius muscles at the tops of the shoulders can roll back and down away from the ears. Lift the center of the chest up slightly, and that's more just a lift that you're doing on the inside than a super muscular effort. And then maintaining all of that, place your hands lightly up or down on your legs. I have been contemplating silence lately and had this experience the other day walking in the woods where I was very aware that even though we often name nature or identify nature as quiet or even as silent, that's not the case. There's birds chirping, there's squirrels chattering, there's wind rustling their leaves, there's abundance of sound actually. And still there's a pervasive sense of quiet that is also still there. So silence then is not the absence of sound, but rather it's this web in which all sound is held. And it's just that we have tuned our ears, especially in our daily life, we've tuned our ears to the sounds as opposed to the silence. And part of the process of our yoga practice is tuning our ears toward the silence as opposed toward the sounds. And so one of the ways that happens in our practice is our mind makes a lot of sounds. It chatters similarly to the squirrels and to the birds in the forest. And that sound, much of the time, is not something that we need to pay attention to, especially in the context of our practice. The invitation of our practice is to tune into and listen more deeply toward the sound of the silence that's holding everything. A direct way in to that silence is through the breath. And in fact, tonight we'll work with a breath technique that involves sound, but it is sound that moves us toward silence, toward a distancing from the mind's chatter, or a sense that we've turned down the volume on the mind's constant description of events and conversation, and turned up the volume on the silence. So the breath that we're going to work with is an Ujjayi breath, and we'll do a couple of rounds here just to fully settle into this breath. And it's a breath that sometimes is called an ocean breath because it sounds like the waves on the beach, or a Darth Vader breath because it has that quality. So it's a sound that we make on the inhale and the exhale, and the sound comes from constricting the throat as if we're pulling the breath in and out of the body through a straw. So the sound is like an ah sound, or sometimes an S sound. So it sounds like this. So we're going to practice that for a few rounds, and then we'll Om, and then we'll move to the mat, and we'll come back to this breath throughout the practice tonight. So close your eyes. Turn your attention to the breath, simply noticing the movement of the breath. So as you continue to just watch the rhythm of your breath move in and out of the body, open the mouth a little bit just for the first couple of rounds. Inhale. And now as you exhale, say ah. Inhale. Open the mouth, a long ah. One more time like this. Exhale with the sound, ah. Now just take a couple of natural breaths. And then we're going to do the same thing with the mouth closed, keeping the jaw relaxed. So the mouth is closed, but the teeth aren't together and there's no tightness in the lips. So with the mouth closed, inhale. Make the same sound on the exhale, but take the breath out the nostrils. See if you can copy that same sound on the breath in. Exhale. Two or three more breaths. And after this next exhalation, let the breath return to normal. And just notice any impact. If this is a newer practice to you, just recognize that it is the beginning of a practice that we cultivate over time. And in the beginning, we want the sound to be quite audible, so that the sound actually pulls us in away from the chatter of the mind. over time, that sound gets quieter, more and more and more subtle, and becomes closer and closer to silence. So depending on where you're at with the Ujjayi breath, if you're meeting it for the first time or if it's a friend, then consider adjusting the volume on your breath, depending on that. And now with your next exhalation, join your hands together at your heart. And together we'll sound Om once. So take a deep breath in. And bow your head over to your heart, the space of silence. And then release your hands. Lift your head. Come all the way up to stand. So stand on your mat with your feet about as wide as the outside of your hips. So quite a comfortable distance apart, not too wide, not too narrow. And let your feet turn out a natural amount. So not a lot, but not pointing straight forward. And then bend the knees so that the knees come straight forward over the middle toes. So the knees are turned out as much as the feet. And keeping the heels on the ground, let your shins take on the weight of the body. So you can completely actually relax the legs once you find the position. And let the bones of the shins hold you in place. So the knees are forward, over the toes, like pointing toward the toes, and a little bit forward over the toes as well. Drop the buttocks down so that the sitting bones face the earth. And then take your hands as if you're cupping a fairly large ball with your hands, and place the hands just below the navel so that the thumbs are 2 or 3 inches below the navel. And hold there for a moment. Let the weight of the feet, of the body, settle down into the feet. And feel the shins, and the bones of the shins, rather, hold the body. Soften the shoulder blades. Soften the fingers. And now we're going to imagine that there's a column in front of us that's about this wide circumferentially. And we're going to sweep our hands down along that column on the exhale and sweep them out and up on the inhale. So you'll work within what's available for your shoulder range of motion. And we'll use the Ujjayi breath if that's working for you. So with the hands like this, release the arms down, rotate the whole arms out, and inhale, sweep the arms up. Imagine there's a column in front of you, and as you exhale, take the hands down as if you're brushing along the sides of that column, all the way down. Inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Exhale. Make the hoarse kind of whispering sound with the breath on the inhale. And the exhale as best you can. One more. When your hands are down, stretch the legs straight. Just pause for a moment. And in the pause, listen. So let the breath return to normal. You can close your eyes if you want and tune into the silence. As opposed to the sounds, the mind is going to chatter, but listen to the silence or the barely perceptible sound in the breath and in the heart. And then, with the eyes open, now take the feet wider apart. So a good distance apart, but not with strain. And then turn your legs out and turn your feet out to the sides as much as is available to you. You don't have to be radical about this, just some amount to the sides. And then again, point the knees out over the middle toes. And now drop your hips down. So you find the place where you can stay for a few breaths. You can place your hands on your legs, keeping the feet turning out and the knees pointing out in the same direction as the middle toes. Lengthen the sitting bones, or drop the sitting bones down, lengthening the lower back. Breathe. And feel what's holding you here. So, a couple of rounds of the Ujjayi breath here, if that's working for you. If not, you simply tune into the sound of the natural breath. One more full breath. And now we're going to circle the hips. So take the hips to the right, back, to the left, forward, to the right, back, to the left, forward. So make big circles with the hips like this. Imagining that your sitting bones are drawing a huge circle or a square on the floor in front of you. At the beginning, it may feel a bit more like you're making a square. One more time in this direction. And then when you're back to center, now we're going to go left, forward, the other way, left, back, right, forward, left, back, right, forward. A couple more times like this. And then come back to center for a moment. Push into both heels, inhale, stretch the legs straight. Turn the feet in a little bit and step the feet together. Now face the short edge of the mat. Take your arms, rotate the whole arms out, and then adding the Ujjayi breath if that's working for you. As you inhale, sweep the arms out and up. As you exhale, bring your hands. Continue the exhale by bending the knees and folding all the way down over the legs. As you inhale, place the hands on the center of the shins. Lengthen the front of the torso, look forward. And then bending the knees again, fold all the way over. Bring your hands to your hips. Lift your chin. Inhale, come up. Circle the arms overhead on the inhale. And then exhale, arms down to your sides. So these are half sun salutations. We'll do a few more. Inhale, circle the arms all the way overhead. Exhale. Or if you can swan dive in one motion, do that. And when your hands are on your hips, bend your knees, fold all the way over. Finish the exhale. Hands on the shins. Inhale, lengthen the front of the torso, look forward. If you can keep the back flat and hold your ankle, touch the ground, do that. And then exhale, bending the knees, fold back over. Hands to the hips or stretch the arms to the sides. Inhale, come all the way up. Sweep the arms overhead. Exhale, hands down to your heart, to your sides. 2 more times. Exhale, fold. Inhale, flatten the back, lengthening the front of the torso. Exhale, fold. Inhale, all the way up, hands on the hips, or sweep the arms to the sides. Exhale, arms down. Last one on your own. And when your arms are at your sides, pause there. Inhale, sweep the arms overhead. Exhale, hands to the hips or dive all the way down over the legs again. This time bend the knees, place the fingertips by the heels, and now step the left foot all the way back into a straight leg lunge. So your right knee is over your right heel. Lift your left thigh up and stretch your left leg really straight. Now strongly hug your right hip in, shifting your hips slightly to the left. Breathe. And then pushing off with your back foot, step forward. Exhale. Inhale, step the right foot all the way back. As soon as you land, point your front knee toward the middle toes of your front foot. Lift the top of your back thigh up. Shift your hips a little bit to the right and hug the left hip in. Take one more breath here. And then pushing off with your back foot, step forward. Exhale. Walk the feet right together so that the inside edges of the feet touch. Sit down. So drop your hips toward your heels. Powerful pose, chair pose. Put your hands on your knees, option 1. And take your arms out at shoulder height, palms down, option 2. Or option 3 is palms face each other and arms alongside the ears. Wherever you are, sink the weight down into back into the heels and drop your sitting bones down. Squeeze the outer hips in and lengthen the whole front line. Push into your heels, inhale, stand up. Exhale, arms to your sides. Separate your feet, keeping the toes pointing straight forward. Inhale, circle the arms overhead if that's available in your shoulders. Exhale, hold all the way over the legs again. Bend the knees, place the fingertips by the heels, and step the left foot back, straight leg lunge again. Here, pause. Lift your back thigh up. Hug your front hip in. So you really feel that that is similar to how it felt in chair pose. And now moving with the breath, we're going to straighten and bend the front leg. So take a deep breath in. As you exhale, press the front leg straighter. Lower your forehead toward your shin. And now as you inhale, bend the front knee, pointing it straight over your middle toes. 4 more times, moving with the breath and using the Ujjayi breath as best you can. In the movement, track the right sitting bone so that it stays in line with your right heel. So it feels like you're tracing a line with your sitting bone as you stretch the leg straighter and then as you bend it. 1 more time. And your front knee is bent. Push off with your back foot, step forward. Exhale. Inhale, step the right foot all the way back. Hug your front hip in, so your front sitting bone lines up with your front heel. With your back leg strong and straight. And the fingertips on either side of the front heel. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. Stretch the front leg straighter. Inhale, bend. Exhale, straighten. Continue like this. Use the sound of the breath to pull you in toward the silence present in the body, where the chatter of the mind fades, just like the noises of the forest do not detract from the silence we experience there. When your front knee is bent, push off with your back foot, step forward. Bend the knees, walk the feet in so that the feet touch. Chair pose, Utkatasana. Knees bent, hands on the hips or forward or alongside the ears. Squeeze the outer hips together, but feel that there's a little curve in the lower back. Draw up the low belly, and as you draw up the low belly, lengthen the whole front of the torso. Squeeze the outer hips together. Push into the heels, inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, and take the arms down. Turn to face the long edge of the mat. And now as you inhale, step the feet really wide apart. Make the outside edges of the feet here either parallel with the short edges of the mat, or turn your toes slightly. And if you have any lower back things, the feet slightly in is a better choice, usually. Place your hands on your hips. Standing spread leg forward bend. Inhale here. And as you exhale, hinge from the tops of the thighs. Bend your knees as much as you need to place the fingertips on the ground. If your knees are bent, I suggest you see if you can wiggle your heels a little bit wider apart. And then plant the heels and bring your hips over your heels. If your legs are not yet straight, as you inhale, stretch them a little straighter, and as you exhale, bend them back down. So adding that little bit of movement may be useful, and you're going to keep doing that even as we walk the arms forward. If your legs are straight, spin the inseam of the legs toward the wall behind you, and squeeze the outer hips in until you feel the low belly lift. Now everybody walk the hands forward, away from you, and stretch out the sides of the torso. So it doesn't matter how far forward you take your hands. You keep the hips back over the heels. And if your knees are bent, then as you inhale, stretch the legs straighter. And as you exhale, bend them back in again. If your legs are straight, as you inhale, push the heels apart, and as you exhale, hug the outer hips in. One more breath. Walk the hands back underneath the shoulders. Bend the knees. Bring the heels in, then the toes in, and the heels in, the toes in. Put your hands on your hips. Inhale, come up. Exhale, and then step the feet together. Triangle pose. Inhale, step the feet really wide apart. Turn the left foot slightly in and spin your right leg and foot out. So here, just slightly bend your front knee so that you feel the weight across the ball of the foot as well as in the heel. Plant your back heel. Inhale, stretch the arms to the side. Lift up a little bit on the right side of the torso, and then as you exhale, stretch out. And as you stretch out, hug your right hip underneath you and put your right hand on your shin or your ankle. If it's available for you, stretch the left arm straight up. Breathe. As you push your back heel down, extend it away from you. Hug your front hip underneath you. Draw the shoulder blades away from your ears and curl the center of the chest up. Push into both heels. Using the strength of the legs, inhale, come up. Exhale, release the arms, turn the feet. And then so turn the right foot in slightly, the left leg and foot out. Planting your back heel. Inhale, take the arms to the sides. Lift up a little bit on the left side. And then as you exhale, stretch out. And as you stretch out, hug your left hip underneath you more. And bring your left hand down. Maybe take your right hand up. Push your right heel out away from you. Hug your left hip underneath you. And then with the shoulder blades away from the ears, tune into the breath. And here, if you can do a couple of rounds of the Ujjayi breath, do that. One more time. Pushing into both heels. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, turn the feet. Release the arms and inhale, step the feet together. Separate the feet as wide as the outside of the hips, standing forward bend. So if your standing forward bend is more available, you'll want to work with the feet closer together. Inhale here. And then as you exhale, hinge from the tops of the legs. Bend the knees as you need to and fold all the way down over the legs. Have all fingertips touch the ground. Lightly push the heels apart. And if your legs are not yet straight, as you push the heels apart, stretch them a little straighter. And then as you exhale, bend them back in again. If your legs are straight, then as you inhale, squeeze the outer hips together. As you exhale, draw the low belly back toward the spine and stretch the crotch toward the earth. One more breath. And put your hands on your hips, bend your knees a little bit, lift your chin. Inhale, come up. Exhale, step the feet right together. Inhale, take the feet really wide apart. Extended side angle, Parsvakonasana. Turn the left foot in, rotate the right leg and foot out. Inhale the arms to the sides. Exhale, deeply bend your front knee, pointing it straight over the middle toes and hugging the outer hip in. And then drop your right forearm to your thigh, stretch your left arm up, or put your left hand on if that's better for your shoulder. So option 1 is to stay here. Option 2 is to take the hand to the inside edge of the foot, and option 3 is to the outside edge of the foot. Wherever you are, push down into your back heel. Bending your front knee deeply, point it straight over your middle toes. With the shoulder blades away from the ears, lift the center of the chest up. Stretch into the top arm, and if it's working for your shoulders, turn the arm and lower it over the ear with the palm turned down. Take one more full breath here. And then pushing into the heels, inhale. Stretch the legs straight. Exhale, release the arms, turn the feet. And then the second side. So turn the right foot in, left leg and foot out. Inhale the arms out. Exhale, deeply bend your front knee and drop your forearm down, stretch the other arm up. Or take whatever variation right away you did on the first side. Press your back heel away from you. And bending your front knee, hug your front hip underneath you and point your front toes straight forward. Drop the shoulder blades, turn the top arm and lower it over the ear again if that's what you did on the first side. And then here, a couple of full, long, deep breaths to the best of your ability, tuning in the sound of the breath. Push into both heels. Inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, turn the feet. Release the arms. Inhale, feet together. Separate the feet again, standing forward bend, Uttanasana. Inhale here, and as you exhale, hinge from the very tops of the thighs. Bend the knees as you need to, fold all the way over, touch your fingertips to the ground. Take a couple of breaths right away, tuning into the Ujjayi breath if that's available. And then, perhaps, if your knees are bent, press the heels apart to stretch the legs straighter, and maybe bend them back down if straightening is a long sensation in the hamstring muscles. If you're keeping your legs straight, hug the outer hips in, peel the low belly back, and even feel like your sitting bones are pointing down and connecting to your heel bones, as opposed to your sitting bones lifting toward the sky if your legs are straight. One more breath. And bend the knees a little bit, put your hands on your hips, lift your chin, inhale, come up, exhale, feet together. Warrior one, inhale, big step apart with your feet. And with your feet wide, put your hands on your hips. Spin your left foot in 60 degrees. So it's more than in the previous positions. Turn the right leg and foot out and move it a step over to the right so that you can turn your torso more or less to face the short edge of the mat. Now push it down into your back heel very strongly and feel the top of that thigh move back. At the same time, spin the outside of the left hip and the left side of your rib cage forward. Either keep your hands on your hips, or if it's available to you, stretch the arms up. And you can interlace the fingers and point the first finger up. Take a deep breath in here. And now as you exhale, bend your front knee deeply. And as you bend your front knee, point it straight forward. Squeeze the outer hips in. And bring your front sitting bone more toward your front heel. Drop the low belly and really lengthen the whole front of the torso. And if your arms are overhead, stretch up into the fingertips. Push into both heels. Inhale, stretch the legs straight. Exhale, turn your feet. Release your arms. Line up your toes. And then the other side. So turn the right foot in, 60 degrees. Rotate your left leg and foot out. And right away, move it over to the left so that you can face the short edge of the mat. Now pressing down into your back heel, feel the top of that thigh move back. Spin the outside of your right hip and the outside of your right wrist forward. Inhale, keeping the back heel planted. Exhale, deeply bend your front knee and sit down. As you sit down, squeeze the outer hips together. Lift up the low belly, lengthen the torso, and stretch the arms overhead if that's what you did on the first side. Tune into the breath. And listen to the sound of the natural breath, or add the Ujjayi breath, if that's possible. One more breath. Now very strongly push into your feet. Inhale, stretch your front leg straight. Exhale, turn the feet, and then inhale, again step the feet together. We're going to do another standing forward bend. So as that's perhaps getting it more available, you might want to have your feet a little closer together. So outer edges of the feet parallel. Inhale. As you exhale, hinge from the tops of the legs. Fold all the way over. Bend your knees as you need to so that your fingertips touch the ground. And with the knees bent, for the first breath or two, make it easier. what increases our focus on the voice of the mind is striving. So as we bend the knees, the body move with greater ease into the pose, we can tune more deeply into the sound of the breath. So with that in mind, maybe now begin to press the heels apart to stretch the legs straighter. Maybe exhale, bend them back down a bit. Or, with the legs staying straight, hug the outer hips in significantly. So you feel like you're trying to pull the feet together to touch, using the outside edges of the legs. Keeping the low belly sitting back, and the sitting bones pointed toward the heels. If your legs are straight, descend the crown of the head toward the earth. Bend the knees, place the hands, lift the chin. Inhale, come up. Exhale, feet together. Inhale, pyramid pose. It's usually, I think, what it's called in English, Parsvottanasana. So it's the same leg position as Warrior One. Spin your left foot in, turn your right leg and foot out, and move it over to the right. So again, you're facing the short edge of the mat. Press the top of your left thigh bone back to descend your left heel. Spin the left side of the torso more forward. And now engage the muscles on the front of your right thigh. Inhale here. And keeping the sitting bone lined up with the heel, exhale, hinge over the legs. Bend your front knee as much as you need to touch your fingertips to the ground. If your front knee is bent, see if you can swivel your back foot around a little bit more so that the toes point a little more forward, and at the same time keep your back heel on the ground. So with your sitting bone, your right sitting bone lined up with your right heel, spin the navel toward the right thigh. Release your head. And now if your front leg is bent, as you inhale, you're going to extend it straighter, keeping the sitting bone in line with the heel. And then as you exhale, you might bend it again. So just a couple of pulses like this here. If your front leg is straight, you're just holding the outer hip in and the navel twisted to the right, and lower your forehead toward your shin. Now plant your back heel, bend your front knee as you need to, and keeping the back heel steady and strong, bring your hands to your hips. Inhale, come up. Exhale, turn the feet, release the arms. Line up your toes for the starting point. And then with your hands on your hips, swing the right foot in 60 degrees. Turn the left leg and foot out and move it over to the left. Press the top of that thigh toward the wall behind you and turn the outside of the hip and the ribs forward. From your front thigh, inhale, lift the center of the heart up. Exhale, hinge, fold, bend your front knee, touch your fingertips to the ground. Maybe see if you can swivel your back leg in more while keeping your back heel planted. Shift your hips a little bit to the right so that your left hip hugs in and your left sitting bone lines up with your left heel. Keeping the low belly slightly back, spin the navel to face the left thigh. Release your head. And then if your front knee is bent, inhale, press it a little straighter. Exhale, bend it back down again. If your front leg is straighter, keep the navel turning toward the front thigh and release the forehead toward the shin. Always keeping a slight sense of give in the knee joint. So you're holding yourself at the muscles of the legs and the buttocks, not the joints of the knees. Now bending your front knee a little bit, plant your back heel, hands to your hips, lift your chin. Inhale, come up. Exhale, turn the feet. Inhale, feet together. And then standing forward bend a second time. or not a second time, a fifth or sixth time. So feet apart, toes pointing forward, inhale, exhale, hinge. Bend the knees as you need to, fold over. Tune into the breath. As you tune into the breath, again, make it a little easier so that the positioning of the body allows still for a breath that has some sense of fluidity and length. So when we close off the breath, we're closing off the access to the silence. So maybe now, press the heels apart. Stretch the legs a little straighter. Maybe hug the outer hips in if your legs are straight. And fold more deeply. Bend the knees a bit. Put your hands on your hips. Lift the chin. Inhale, come up. Exhale, feet together. Standing spread leg forward bend. It's what we started the standing poses with, so we'll repeat that. Step the feet really wide apart and line up the toes. Put the hands on the hips. Firm the muscles of the thighs, and again, having the knees a little bit bent to start is more optimal for most of us than having the legs super straight. Inhale, lift the center of the heart up. As you exhale, hinge from the tops of the legs. Come over, touch the fingertips to the ground. Again, bend the knees as much as you need to have the hands on the ground. And maybe take the heels a little wider apart. Maybe take the feet a little wider apart. So there's going to be a couple of options here. One is you can walk the hands forward like we did at the beginning. And then work at pulsing the legs straighter. So bending and straightening the legs. Option two is from the hands under the shoulders. You can take the hands out in front of the feet, or you might grip the big toes with the first two fingers and the thumbs. If you're here, bend the knees so that you can release the head down toward the ground. Lift the shoulder blades away from the ground. And then engaging the muscles of the buttocks. Inhale, stretch the legs straighter. Exhale, bend them back. If your legs are comfortably straight, keep them straight. Hug the outer hips in like you're trying to pull the feet together to touch. Turn the sitting bones toward the heels if the legs are straight. Hug in the low belly. And rest the top of the head on the ground or point it in that direction. One more breath. Inhale, bend the knees. Bring the hands back under the shoulders. Heel toe the feet in. Hands to your hips. After you've done that a couple of times, inhale, come up. Exhale, feet together. Face the short edge of the mat. One last standing forward bend. So maybe feet a little closer together if the muscles in the backs of the legs are feeling a little more responsive. Inhale here, and as you exhale, bend the knees as needed, fold all the way down over the legs. As you fold over the legs, you can either keep the fingertips on the ground, or if you want to take it a little further, catch the backs of your ankles with your hands so that your elbows come in toward the shins. Make sure the heels are slightly wider than the toes, so you're slightly pigeon-toed. And now, use your arms to bring your torso closer to your thighs, your head toward your shins. And then you can just stay here. Or, again, you can inhale, stretch the legs straighter. Exhale, maybe bend them a bit. Or if your legs are happily straight,
Make sure that the sitting bones point down toward the heels so you're not stressing the attachments where your hamstring muscles and your sitting bones meet. Hug the outer hips in. Draw the low belly back. One more breath. And then bend the knees, place the hands flat. Step one foot and then the other all the way back, downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. If you're not doing that, child's pose is a good alternative. Look at your hands and evenly spread out your fingers. Press the knuckles at the base of the index fingers and the heels of the thumbs down, and slightly bend the elbows. Lift the undersides of the arms away from the ground and turn the triceps toward the face, keeping the elbows just a tiny bit bent. Now pull the hips back away from the wrists. And then bend the right knee, press the left heel down, especially lengthening the calf muscle. Bend the left leg, press the right heel down, especially lengthening the calf. One more time on each side. Right knee bent, left heel down, and then other way. And then press both legs straight. Exhale, drop your knees to the ground. And sit with your legs out in front of you. Bend your knees. Navasana boat pose. Catch the backs of the thighs with the hands. Drop the shoulder blades. Lift the center of the. So make sure that you've got space behind you in case you roll backwards. And then keeping the chest lifted, come onto the toes, the tips of your toes, walk the toes in, lean back just enough so that you can bring the shins up parallel to the ground. Lift the chest. Press the legs into the hands, like you're trying to create more of an arch back. So instead of rounding the back toward the ground, you're trying to move the lower back in. Good, one more breath. And then exhale, release. Just for a moment, stretch the legs straight. And then bend again. Catch the backs of the legs with the hands. Drop the shoulder blades. Come onto the toes. Walk in, lean back the minimal amount. Lift the chest. And then shins parallel to the ground. Or, as you push the legs into the hands, maybe stretch the legs straighter. Wherever you are, keep lifting the chest up and see if you can get a deep V from your thighs through your torso. One more breath. And then exhale. Down and come all the way down onto your back. You can have a blanket for behind your head here. So just on your back for a moment, let's pause here and tune in again to the breath. So take your feet a little bit apart, drop your knees together. And now just for a moment, bring your hands lightly to your navel and draw the low belly down. And feel how that automatically begins to lift and widen the ribs. So keeping the low belly quiet, now you can move your hands to the bottom of the rib cage. And now as you inhale, you're simply going to try to lift and widen the rib cage as much as possible, keeping the low belly quiet. So exhale, low belly down, and now inhale, lift and widen the rib cage. Keep the eyes quiet. Exhale, release, low belly down, Inhale, lift and widen the rib cage. So if you can add that Ujjayi breath, do that. One more time. And then release the arms to the sides. So you can place your hands at your sides, or you can grip onto the edges of the mat, keeping the weight even across the back of the pelvis. Draw the low belly down again, and then this time bring the knees just up over the hips. Keep the low belly down, and keeping the low belly down and the weight even on the back of the pelvis. Stretch the right leg straight just at a 45-degree angle, bend it back down, and then left leg and bend. One more time on each side. Straighten, bend, straighten left leg, bend. You're keeping the low belly down the whole time. And then drop the knees down, the feet down. So you can do that just as we did, or if you want to add more, interlace your hands behind your head and lift your head and shoulders up and do the movement from here. So wherever you are, weight even across the back of the pelvis. That's really important that you're. And then drawing the low belly down, take the knees just up over the head. Arms at your sides will be a little less intense. So if your hands are interlaced behind your head, curl your head and shoulders up, and then stretch the right leg out at about a 45-degree angle. Inhale, bend. Left leg. Bend. Couple more times. When you finish with your next left side, exhale the feet down. Pause. Let the breath return to normal. Take the feet a little bit apart, drop your knees together. Tone a low belly, but with less intensity than it was. Keeping the low belly lightly down toward the spine. Bring your hands again to your rib cage. We'll do the same breath work. Exhale. Now as you inhale, lift and widen the rib cage. See if you can hold that just for a moment, and then exhale. Add the sound. Little hold. Exhale. 2 more times. Low belly stays quiet the entire way. Last one. Once you finish, roll over and come to the stomach. So you can just move the blanket to the side. And then lying down on your stomach, bring your chin or your forehead to the ground. Take your arms back by your sides and turn the arms so that the palms face up. Scoop up the low belly and engage the muscles of the buttocks, drawing the buttocks down toward the heels. So you can have your feet just a couple of inches apart. And we're going to lift up the head, chest, the arms, and the legs, Shalabhasana or locust pose. If lifting the legs does not
work for your lower back, then just lift the head, chest, and the arms. So exhale, inhale, and curl up. Head, chest, arms, and legs. Curl the chest back, lift the tops of the thighs as much as possible, stretch out through the legs, and then exhale, come down. Make sure you're right in the center of your thighs. We're going to repeat that a second time. And so walk your fingertips toward your feet. Lift the tops of the shoulders away from the ground. Hug up the low belly. Engage the buttocks. Exhale. Lift. Curl the chest back away from the ground. Lift the tops of the thighs. Inhale. Exhale, come down. Bend the knees and flex the feet so that the feet are just over the knees. So you're not drawing the heels toward the hips, you're keeping the knees just, the heels just over the knees. Flex the feet strongly. Scoop up the low belly, firm the muscles of the buttocks. So we're going to lift the head, chest, the arms, and the knees. One option is that you can lift one knee, the right knee on the first round, and then the left knee on the second round, or you lift both knees together. So again, if this is not a good idea for your lower back, although for many people it's easier than the previous one, not easier, but more available if you're lifting one knee and then the other. The other option is that you keep the knees down on the ground and you just lift the chest and the arms. So when you're ready, scoop up the low belly, lift the tops of the arms away from the ground, exhale, and then inhale and lift up. As you lift up, lift the knees up, curl the chest. If you're lifting only the right knee, make sure that the weight is even across the front of the pelvis. And then exhale and come down. Adjust the legs in any way that you need to. And then a second time. So as you bend the knees, flex the feet. Lift the tops of the arms away from the ground. And then exhale, inhale, and come up. As you make sure that one foot is not lifting more than the other if your feet are, if you're lifting both knees at the same time. Curl the chest up. Lift the knees up. And then exhale, come down. Place the hands under the shoulders. Tuck the toes under. You can press onto your hands and knees or take downward facing dog. Let's not do child's pose right now. So if your arms are not happy in downward facing dog, then stay on the hands and knees and curl the spine in, lifting the center of the chest forward and up. From here, we're going to come into a lunge with the right foot forward and the left knee on the ground. So if you're in downward facing dog, step the right foot up. From your hands and knees, bring the right foot up. Walk the left knee back a little bit. Take a couple of breaths here. So your front knee is over your front heel. And you're lining that sitting bone up with the heel. Lift the center of the chest up. Couple of breaths. Tune into the sound of the breath, either on that Ujjayi breath or just in the natural rhythm of the breath. And then change sides. So if you were in downward facing dog, you can tuck your left toes under, lift the knees, step back, or just simply from your hands and knees, change sides. So left foot forward, right knee on the ground. So your left knee is over your left heel. Walk your right knee back a little bit. Breathe. Feel into the sensations, probably on the front of the back thigh. Bringing a little movement again can be helpful to work through any places that feel a bit congested. And then either back to your hands and knees or downward facing dog. And then we're going to come back onto the back. So when you're ready, turn over, take your blanket again for your head, lie on your back, extend the left leg straight on the ground, and then bend the right knee in and catch the back of the right thigh. So take a moment here and make sure your left leg is pointing straight up, so the knee and the foot point straight up toward the sky. And then even the weight across the back of the pelvis. Create more of a curve in the lower back. And then draw the right knee in toward the chest without flattening the curve in the lower back. Some amount, so it doesn't matter how far in you go. And now, press the thigh into the hands, flex the foot, and pushing out through the heel, stretch that leg straighter. So if it's not yet straight, then as you exhale, bend it, and then straighten. If it is straight, press the thigh into the hands, keep the weight even across the back of the pelvis, and then use your hands to draw the leg in even as your thigh pushes into your hands. One more breath. And then bend, release that leg. Change sides, so bend on the right leg straight. Keeping the right knee and the foot pointing straight up in the air. Hollow out the lower back a little bit. Draw the left knee in and catch the back of the thigh. Breathe. You really want to be pressing the right thigh bone down so that the space behind the back of the leg and the ground diminishes or eventually disappears. And then without flattening the lower back curve, draw the left knee in some amount. So your right thigh stays grounded. The lower back is lifting up a little bit away from the ground. And then you hug the knee in. Now, flex that foot, push the thigh away from you. And as you push the thigh away from you, stretch the leg straight. Push up into the heel. So again, you can work with just bending and straightening with your breath. Or if the leg is straight, you want to press the thigh into the hands using your leg strength. And then with your arms, draw the leg toward you. So it's like the leg is resisting and the arms are asking. One more breath. And bend that leg, release. Place both feet on the ground. Cross the left ankle on the right thigh. Keep the weight even across the back of the pelvis. So option one is you just stay here and you press the right thigh away from you without tilting the pelvis to make that happen. Option two is you lift the knee in and hold the back of the thigh or the shin. If this is very available for you, you could draw the right heel into more of a half lotus position. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's not for you. So hold the back of the left thigh if you're lifting the knee. Wherever you are, balance the weight across the back of the pelvis so that there's a sense of a curve. Even if your lower back is touching the ground, there's a sense of a curve there. And now, stretch or extend the right knee away from you. And if your
left knee is in toward your left shoulder, then as your right knee moves away from you, in opposition to that, you draw the left knee in with your arms. One more breath. And then releasing the hands, put the left foot on the ground, uncross the right. Change sides, so left ankle on right thigh. Pause. Balance the weight across the back of the pelvis. Maybe press the left thigh away from you. Either staying there or lifting up or taking the foot into more of the half lotus position. Catch the back of the thigh with your hands. Everybody keep the weight even across the back of the pelvis and a little curve in the lower back. Now tuning into the breath and using the Ujjayi breath, if that makes sense. Inhale, left knee away from you. Exhale, maybe right knee toward the right shoulder. If the Ujjayi breath is present, perhaps begin to make it just a little softer. And then releasing the hands. Put the right foot down, uncross the left. Roll all the way over to your side and sit up. So we're going to do a couple of seated forward bends, and these are some of the trickier poses for us because it's hard to make sure that we're protecting and working well in the lower back. So if when you sit with the legs out straight back around and the top of your pelvis in the back of the body, the sacrum, rolls in any way backwards, and you need to sit on something to lift the spine up. So this is where a blanket folded or a pillow can be helpful. If you can have the legs extended and the lower back moving in and the chest up so you can maintain an upright torso without your hands, then when you fold forward, you want to make sure that you're hugging the low belly back and dropping the buttocks down and squeezing them in as you come forward. So that that's less important if you're up on the height and you're working on the hamstring length. Once you have a certain amount of length in the hamstring, we have to hold the pelvis steady and stable with the work in the hips and the low belly. So I hope that's making sense. So I'm going to do it up. So with the legs extended, turn your thighs in with your hands. So this is more important for you to do if you're up on height. It's less significant if your legs and your torso are, if your legs are on the ground. So now bend the left leg and open the left knee to the side. And as you open the left knee to the side, if the knee is up in space, you have two options. One is you grab a pillow and you support the leg with a pillow or a block or something, a blanket that you have handy. Option two is that you really flex the left foot and hold the left leg in place using the strength of the leg and especially the ankle. So the foot is flexed and the ankle is up off the ground, and it's like you're even lifting the knee up a little bit more. So depending on what's available for you in your environment, that knee can go down or you hold it up in space. So with the left foot, the right leg straight and the left leg bent, and face the V between your knees. So instead of turning a bit toward the right knee, you're going to face the V. So your torso is going to come down right between your knees. So now flexing the right foot, have the right leg straight, press the back of the right thigh down, bring the top of the pelvis in the back in, and lift the front of the body up. Now as you exhale, hinge from the tops of the thighs and come over and place your hands down in between your knees.
If your left knee is not supported and you're holding it in place, make sure you're lifting it a little bit away from the ground. And then, keeping the length in the front of the torso, begin to walk the hands out. So if you're on support, you want to think about sliding the sitting bones away from you and bringing the pelvis more forward over your left foot. If you're not on support, then you want to think about weighting the buttocks down, squeezing them in, and drawing the low belly away from your left foot as you come forward. One more breath. And then walking the hands back in, inhale, come on up. Lift the knee, the left knee, stretch the left leg straight. And then we'll change sides. So bend the right leg, open the right knee to the side, and support the knee as needed, or use the strength of the leg to hold it in place. And that means you're flexing the right foot strongly and lifting the outer ankle and the outer shin up away from the ground. With your left leg straight, face the V between your knees. This is a version of Janu Sirsasana, head to knee pose. As you face the V between the knees, if you're on support, you're tipping the pelvis forward and bringing your hands to the ground. If you're not on support, you're doing that, and at the same time you're weighting the buttocks down and squeezing them together. Wherever you are, lengthen the front of the torso, and as you exhale, come forward. As you come forward, especially if you're on height, tip the pelvis so that the low belly comes over the right foot. If you're not on height, descend the buttocks, hug the low belly in, back away from your right heel, and then everybody extend the crown of the head away from the pelvis. Inhale, walk the hands back in and come up, lift that knee, stretch that leg straight. And straight leg forward bend, Paschimottanasana. So with the legs straight out in front of you, turn your thighs in with your hands. Same thing. So on the support, you want to really tip the pelvis forward. So you hinge from the tops of the legs and bring the pelvis forward over the thighs. If you're not on support, you're also doing that, but at the same time, you're weighting the buttocks down and squeezing them in, hugging the low belly back. If you're on support, you don't need to think about that so much. So with the knees and the feet pointing straight ahead and the pelvis tipped forward, place your hands either on your legs or on the ground on the outsides of your shins. Lengthening the front of the torso. Exhale. Fold some amount forward. As you inhale, lengthen from the base of the pelvis to the crown of the head. Keep the legs strong and straight. And as you exhale, fold forward a little bit more. Maybe. Now tune into the breath. As you inhale, lengthen and lift the front of the torso. And as you exhale, soften, maybe fold further. Tune into the breath and the sensations of the pose, as opposed to the mind's chatter about what should be happening and how far we should be going. Those are immaterial and irrelevant to the process and the practice of tuning into the silence and the access to that silence is through the sound of the breath. Walking the hands back in, inhale, come on up. Exhale. Remove the blanket and you can put it just to the side. Come back onto your back to finish before Shavasana. So you could have the blanket for your head for the first part, but not for the second part. So the first part's windshield wipers. So you can have your arms to your sides, or you can stretch the arms up alongside the ears, as you like. And then wherever you are, drop your right knee toward your left, take your feet wider apart.
And then drop your right knee toward your left foot. Pick that knee back up, keeping the right knee up. Drop your left knee toward your right foot. Lift it back up. Right side, right knee down. Come back up. Left knee down. Come back up. One more time on each side. And then supported bridge pose. So for here, just move the blanket if you have it there. Take your arms to your sides, separate your feet several inches apart. Take the heels out a little bit. Tuck the tops of the shoulders under. And curving the lower back away from the ground, push into the heels. Inhale, lift your hips up a bit. Again, tuck the tops of the shoulders under. With your arms at your sides, grab onto your mat. Strongly turn your arms out. And now push into the center of the heels and lift the hips up. As you lift the hips up, curve the lower back. So you want to have as much of an arc in this position as possible. There's different ways to do it, but today we want as much of an arc here as possible away from the ground so that the whole spine moves into the body as opposed to toward the earth. Especially move the lower back spine in toward the navel and then press the center of the chest toward the chin. Exhale. Come all the way down. And then right away we'll do a second time. So gripping onto the edges of the mat, push into the heels, inhale, come up. Tuck the tops of the shoulders under, push down into the heels. As you come up, squeeze the knees a little bit in toward each other. They're not touching, but they're just squeezing in. Curve the entire spine away from the ground. Roll the upper arms out. Inhale, and then exhale, and come down. Support the back of it with a blanket or pillow. Just step your feet a little bit further away from you. Adjust so that you're in a comfortable position. You can let the knees touch again. And then we're going to do a couple more rounds of the Ujjayi breath before Shavasana. So keeping the low belly down, place your hands on your ribs. Soften the jaw. Just take a couple of natural breaths. And then exhale. Draw the low belly below the navel toward the earth without flattening the lower back. And now as you inhale, lift and expand the rib cage, making that hoarse whispering breath in as best you can. Hold that just for a moment. And then exhale. Hoarse, long, whispering exhale. Low belly down. Inhale. Lift and widen the ribs. Exhale. Ujjayi breath. Perhaps the sound's getting a little subtler. At some point the sound is only audible within the body, and people beside you would not hear it. Would you inhale, lift and widen the ribs? For a little moment. Pause and then exhale. Two more times like this. Last one. And then when you finish this exhalation, stretch the legs out straight, supporting the backs of the knees in any way needed to release the lower back after the practice. Grab any additional clothing that you need.
and lie down with ease and comfort. I have several bowls here, and the sound of the bowls, which isn't the same through the internet as it is in person, but still it's effective. The sound of the bowls is meant to help draw the attention inward. So I'm going to play the bowls for part of our time in Shavasana. So as you settle, let the legs and the feet roll open. Take the arms either to the sides of the body with the arms turned up, or bend the elbows and place the palms down on the torso. Your eyes. And soften, especially the jaw. Especially the eyes. Silence beneath Notice the barely perceptible sound of the breath and any sense of a pervasive silence that holds all the sound inside and outside. Silence that is pervasive and present, and that requires simply that we attune our ears to it. Without disturbing any sense of the silence, gently deepen the breath. And with your next deeper breath in, bend the knees, place the feet on the ground. And then supporting the head as needed with the right arm, roll all the way to your right side. Paws curl on your side. And then pushing into your left hand, press yourself up. Come to sit. And simply sit with the eyes closed for a moment. And letting the breath be soft and as unrestricted in movement as possible. With the jaw relaxed. Tune in again to the barely perceptible sound of the breath that tunes us into the expanse of silence present at our core, and also holding all sound inside and around us. Exhale and join your hands at your heart. And with the intention of continuing to pay attention to the silence below and within the sounds, we'll close with one Om. Exhale. Take a deep breath in. Thank you. Namaste.